Hello everyone, and welcome to our first event of the last day of Black and Environment Week. Happy Earth Day to everybody. So we're just going to wait for about one minute or two while we wait for Elizabeth Goffe, our final panelist, to get here. But in the meantime, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from or where you're joining us from, what your plans are for Earth Day, if you've had a chance to take a nature walk, as we've been encouraging people to do today. And if you've had a chance to check out our meditation video, and we have the link shared on our Instagram link tree and on Twitter. All right, so we're going to get started, and let me just introduce our wonderful panelists today. So the goal of our panel today is to close the week on a restorative note, and we have a glowing group of healers and wellness experts. We're going to be talking about healing sustainably, finding community, and what the environmental future could look like, and how everyone's practices could play a role in that. So before we actually jump into the panel, I'd like to take a second to thank our sponsors, the Environmental Defense Fund and the Natural Resources Defense Council, for their generous support and sponsorship of this event, as well as Black and Environment Week in general. We'd also like to thank Dr. Jessica Hernandez for generously donating copies of her book, Fresh Banana Leaves. If you complete our survey at the end of this event, you will be entered into a raffle to win a copy of her book. Okay, so let's start with Maya Blow. She is an herbalist and classical homeopath practicing in the East San Francisco Bay Area. She studied herbal medicine at the California School of Herbal Studies in Northern California, and also completed 4 years of homeopathic medical school at the Institute of Classical Homeopathy in San Francisco. Besides her passion for holistic and alternative medicine, Maya is an artist, a mother of two, a farmer, and an avid crafter. Maya teaches nature studies, gardening, herbal medicine, and many other homesteading and DIY classes. So welcome, Maya.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Lauren Ash. Lauren has clarity about her purpose. She knows that she's here to expand the consciousness of Black women. Since founding Black Girl in Om in 2014, her vision has been to lead the creation of transformational experiences and content that radically centers and authentically speaks to historically marginalized global communities. From executive producing and hosting the Black Girl in Om podcast, which has reached nearly 3 million listeners, to touring the globe guiding meditations, yoga, and transformational conversations, Lauren's contributions to the world ultimately reflect what she once needed and didn't see. So we're very excited to have Lauren on our panel today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We also have with us Gabrielle Williams. Gabi is a multidisciplinary teacher and holistic healer from Washington, D.C. She spent 8 years training as a medicine woman and curandeira in Afro-Brazilian and indigenous traditions with shamans in Bahia, Brazil. She incorporates healing traditions from her own lineage, Reiki, sacred earth medicines, sound healing, as well as transpersonal therapy techniques, and a deep knowledge of trauma psychology to help others learn how to heal themselves and foster a deeper connection with the divine within and all around. She is a mother, high school teacher, and proud graduate of Spelman College. So welcome, Gabi Williams.
Thank you.
And we also have with us Elizabeth Goffe. Elizabeth is a wellness practitioner and studio owner of the TrueSelf Center in Kingston, Jamaica. Elizabeth's offerings are rooted in compassion, and her hope is to create community and open space for people to use intentional practices such as Reiki, yoga, and many others as tools for activation, inspiration, and healing in their lives. Elizabeth will join us as soon as she's able to. And I am Davisha James, so I'll be moderating this conversation today. I'm a geologist and science writer from Dominica, not the same country as the Dominican Republic, different island. I am an outdoor enthusiast and an avid hiker, and I'm about 5 years into my yoga practice. And as you can tell, I'm very excited about the group that we have gathered for this conversation today. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this space with all of you. All right, so let's get started with a quick introductory question. So can you tell us about your passions and the inspirations for your work and how you define wellness? We can start with Maya.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon. My passion is everything that has to do with plants. I am a complete and total plant nerd. I'm a farmer. I've been stewarding my farm and owning this land that I'm stewarding for 12 years. So really passionate about having deep connection to the land and having a slow pace, being able to observe through the seasons, being able to develop deep relationships with plants and plant medicine. And the way that that infuses into my work is to be able to share a sacred and safe space with people of color to come to the farm and learn about what it means to connect with the land, to be close to the land and understand that the land can hold us, can absorb our trauma, can give us a space where we can experience joy, release our pain, learn about healing, learn about each other. So this is the work that I do every single day, and I'm so passionate about it. And wellness to me looks like first and foremost connecting and being one with Creator, and then being able to be aligned with our purpose in the world and reaching out through that with a full cup so that we can be of service to others. So whatever that means, to keep our cup full so that as we're moving out through the world and sharing our special gifts and our magical gifts, that we're not depleting ourselves, that we can have a sustainable way that we move through the world to share our magic and connect with others and heal together and grow together. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. That was a beautiful response. I see Gabi snapping in her Zoom window. Would you like to go next?
Sure. That resonated so much. Like a lot of the things I have to say are very aligned with that. My passion is the plants as well, the natural world, but specifically entheogens, sacred plant medicines that have been used for thousands of years by civilizations all around the world to promote altered states of consciousness and thus radical states of healing. Plants, fungus, and some of our animal allies as well. They're all my passion and all of the healing modalities around that and the ancestral traditions around that. I believe that the way forward for us as a people is to sankofa and go back and get it, go back and get that which has been forgotten, and leave behind the parts that don't work for us anymore and incorporate the better parts of how we're living in the modern world, the sustainable and Black woman-led parts of our modern world, and to blend it into, blaze a new path forward. And I think that really starts with the wellness of each person. And that's what wellness is to me. It's a state of healing, alignment, and flow with Mother Earth, Father, Mother Universe, the great mystery, whatever you call this entity from which we all come, being aligned with that energy and walking in purpose and walking in a state of healing and unlearning that which we need to unlearn, and learning, the secrets that we've been keeping from ourselves, so that we can, when we're all aligned in our walk, it matters a lot on a global scale. A people that is healed and that is walking in lockstep with Creator does not harm their mother, the earth. So I think it's healing for personal liberation and for just, survival of this beautiful planet that we live on. Well, the planet will survive. Survival for us if we are really meant to be here and to be good stewards of this place that we were so fortunate to inhabit. But yeah, thank you.
Lovely. All right. Lauren?
Yes, so many beautiful things have been shared already. My passions definitely include being in community and intentional community with Black women, any and all healing modalities that I have found to be useful for me on my particular path, both as a practitioner and as a space holder. So, I've been practicing yoga for about 10 years and teaching for just shy of that. I really, really have found so much wholeness as well in meditation, various meditation practices and approaches, and of course, time in nature. I grew up in Minnesota. I feel like that has imprinted on me the awareness of how much green space and access to, fresh water and lakes and streams really influences my mental health and my sense of myself as connected to the land. And with ancestral ties that go back to the South as well. Like whenever I travel down South, I feel kind of renewed kind of connection to myself. And so, yeah, so many passions, but those are some of them. And all of those also in one way or another influence my work in the world of being a space holder for other Black women on their healing journeys. My thoughts about wellness at this moment, because I definitely feel like it's shifted over time, is really, and there's going to be so much like overlap with what has already been shared, but alignment and the active practice of alignment in mind, body, and spirit, and understanding that that alignment is so influenced by the environment. I experienced this, as I'm sure we all did, so much over the past 2 years, realizing how much my own sense of kind of inner harmony and inner peace is connected to the shifting states of what's happening around me, and realizing too that it is absolutely not a singular, or not a singular, but a practice that is one for me to take up on my own. I had huge revelations over the past year as well of how much I need to lean into my, inner circle, into the women in my life that matter the most to me, in deeper ways than ever before. So just honoring the ebb and flow of what my own healing journey has looked like for me has also been an act of self-love and just allowing myself to be in whatever season spirit is asking me to be in and to rest in that. So thank you.
Love these responses so much. And I also love the links and the connections between everyone's responses, like making sure that you are pouring from a full cup, caring for your community, making sure you're in step and in alignment with what your purpose is. So welcome to Elizabeth. Can you tell us, we already read your bio, so can you tell us a bit about your passions and inspiration for the work that you do and how you define wellness?
Okay, well, in terms of inspiration and passion, for me, my desire to do the work I do, which is primarily offering wellness practices such as yoga and Reiki, and creating spaces for various community offerings. My inspiration is to do that comes from knowing what it's like to be in a state of imbalance myself, knowing what it's like to experience inner turmoil, and noticing how that affects my ability to interact with nature, with the environment around me, with the people within my community. So knowing that I'm not the only one who has those struggles, and being interested in sharing the tools that have helped me get through that and return to a sense of balance, a sense of harmony, a sense of actually feeling like I belong in this world. So that's really what inspires me to do the work I do, is the hope that we can all access some sense of belonging and harmony with this world that we live in and the people around us. Oh, and in terms of wellness, again, wellness to me, that sense of harmony is a big part of it. And wellness as a practice, I think, is about being aware of when you're in harmony and when you're not, with self and with the environment and the people around you. And so to me, it is something that many of us don't actually practice consciously. And when you get introduced to the fact that you have that capability within yourself to do things that bring you back to center, that bring you into harmony, it can be a powerful, powerful tool to use in this world. And so that's what I think wellness as a practice really is, being able to bring yourself back into that alignment and that harmony.
Yeah, for sure.
And I see some Jamaicans in the comments. Hello.
So we have been talking a lot during this week about sustainability, whether it's through fashion or education, and being responsible caretakers of the land that we are living, not just on, but living with. And everybody here has already talked about how much they love plants, they love nature, they love the planet, and it's calming and it's restorative for us. But how can we make sure that we are nurturing that environment in return through our own practices? Maya, would you like to go first? I think I might just keep the same order because it's the order you're in on my screen.
Sure. I might have a more, I feel like my story and my experience has been maybe more, I don't want to say more extreme, but it may not be the experience that everyone chooses. But about 12 years ago, my family and I chose to more or less do an experiment to purchase some land, and we decided to try to produce and grow as much of what we consume as possible. And so it's a family of 4. So starting out growing our food, really sourcing like where, everything we consume, where does it come from? What can we produce the most of? What can we let go of that we don't consume or purchase locally? And so that's been a 12-year journey of really deconstructing, like, where does everything come from and what do we actually need? And I feel like I've learned so much, and I've really learned to live a simple life. I've learned the things that I really don't want to compromise on, the things that I really feel like I want that make me feel good in my life, and the things that I can let go of. And so for me, what it really comes down to, like whether or not you can actually grow your food and produce what you consume or not, is to source as much as of what you use as locally as possible. And I think that as the world is changing more and more, and as things are getting harder to access, and we're using up all these fossil fuels, it's really going to come down to, using and consuming what we have in our immediate environment. And one of the things that I'm so passionate about in my work is empowering folks, especially folks of color, to be able to really observe their environment, their natural environment, and what's around, what grows around us, whether you live in the city, whether you live in the suburbs, whether you live in a rural area. What are the plants that grow around us that are edible, that are medicinal, that are healing? And so that we can feel like we don't always have to go to the store, or if we don't have access to a store anymore, because it's, may come to that soon. What are the plants that are really sustainable? They may not be native, but they might just be abundant. What's the abundance that we have in our area? And then the other thing that I think is really important is to create community and to do asset mapping and look around in our neighborhoods. Who do we live around? What skills and resources are abundant around us? Because I think that is what is going to create resilience. And I might be getting ahead in the questions that you're going to ask, but I just feel like it's so important for us to have a strong network of community so that we can use each other's resources, we can depend on one another. I think that's my experience, and my answer is really to use what's as local, use whatever resources are as local as possible. Try to eat seasonally, give up the stuff that comes all the way from Mexico or really far away. Try to eat what grows in your area at the time of year that it's growing, and just simplify our lives. We can have such rich and beautiful and healthy lives and still keep it simple. So I think that's what I have to say. Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I really love that you mentioned community, because our futures, they're not going to be individual futures. Like, we really have to learn to support each other and build networks, not just amongst ourselves where we live, but also like global networks, and figure out how we can support the work that everybody is doing in their own corners of the globe. All right, Gabi?
I'm getting emotional over here because we're so in sync, and that's just such a sign of like flow and of like, there are many truths, but there is a direction that things are moving in, and there is a truth that is specifically important to Black women and people of color around how to live in this world. And I love that we're saying so many of the same things. I feel like we're finishing each other's sentences. It's just, I'm getting all the feels. But yeah, community, as a single mom, and as someone who comes from a community in, my spiritual practice was founded in a community, a shamanic community where we all kind of lived in close proximity. Asset mapping, and even things as simple, but it's not that simple. We know community is not that simple, but as straightforward as living in close proximity to one another so that we can share resources and share skills, so that we're not burning out, and so that we can invest greater time and energy into being good stewards of the land, whether it be, growing gardens, farming, whatever have you. And just getting into more sustainable practices, because a lot of what makes it so difficult for people to, do right by the land and by the earth is because our time is being sapped away from us by capitalism. So kind of hitting the problem at the root through community. And then, that really resonated with me, what Maya said about using what's local. When I moved back to the States from Brazil, I moved because of a virus that was mainly affecting pregnant women and their children at the time, Zika virus. So I had to leave because of, probably a climate change induced, probably zoonotic in origin disease. I had to leave, where I was. I'm like, I think I was a climate refugee. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Like I had to leave because I was pregnant and this virus stood to endanger my unborn child. So my medicine that I work with primarily is ayahuasca, which grows in the Amazon basin, Amazon rainforest. It's composed of two plants and a vine and a leaf, chacruna and jagubi. And the vine itself is like, it's as big as like 3 people's arms intertwined. It's an incredible plant. And it needs huge tree canopy in order to grow. You know, the kambo that we use, which is, it is a sustainable animal-based medicine that we use for immune and cleansing needs and all of that. You know, the kambo frog is only found in these areas. And so now being here in the States and continuously receiving the message to share my practice here and to continue serving the medicine, because that's what I was called to do. And every time I've tried to do something else, I get, you know, popped right back onto my path. I'm like, all right, Spirit wants me to work with this medicine and make plant medicine work, spiritual work around plant medicine and the ancestral traditions that come with it available to Black folks and people of color, especially here, and especially here on the East Coast, where there's a lot less of it than there is and a lot less access in some areas. So I had to really sit with the fact that in order to work with the medicine that I have the deepest relationship with, it would be extremely difficult, you know, in terms of transporting it, working with it, legalities around it. You know, the fact that there's only one state in the entire United States that can grow it, and it's not even in the contiguous United States, it's in Hawaii, you know. So I'm like, what do I do? And that's when the fungus started speaking to me, and they're like, well, we're everywhere. And if you put enough of them on the scale, you get a very similar experience. And I've known that, but it was kind of like, everyone was coming to me, we want ayahuasca, it's the new thing to do. And it's like, yes, grandmother ayahuasca and grandfather iboga in West Africa and all of these amazing medicines, they're amazing. But I kind of have had to talk people down from the cachet around them because it's foreign, exotic. Ooh, I heard it's so extreme. And I had to bring folks down to the root and let them know, like, let's have reverence for all of these medicines. They're very potent, all of them, and they're available everywhere. There's morning glory growing right outside my door right now. I don't suggest working with that medicine. That's not, you know, disclaimer there, but these medicines are all potent. So it's not just, you know, let's do the bucket list thing and go, you know, and use this because it's got that kind of cachet, like, you know, vibe to it. We can use medicines that are readily available. So that I really appreciate that question and Maya's answer as well.
Right. Like the buzz isn't always helpful. It's good to get people to open their mind to new possibilities, but also it's not like something to just tick off a list. That's right. All right, Lauren.
I'm learning so much. I think this is a question that I don't really have a lot of answers for. I have more questions with this question. But one thing that did come to mind for me is just this idea of reciprocity, you know, like as much as we love nature and are receiving so much from the land and from just energies and entities that exist on the land, giving thanks, you know, I think about a practice that I've been introduced to in the past few years of giving offerings and understanding, you know, the different forces of nature that exist that we can give offerings to, and how, at least for me, understanding that my lineage, my ancestors did that, right, for thousands of years. So whether it's, you know, tangible offerings like different fruits or different you know, natural materials that I'm giving back to the land, and prayers alongside that, or just the simple, you know, act of at the end of like a meditation that I have in nature, giving thanks out loud for what I'm receiving because of being able to practice that in nature. You know, it doesn't really have to be like complex or complicated, but it's really understanding that there is this reciprocal relationship and not taking it for granted, I think. But yeah, I learned so much from both Maya and Gabrielle shares. I'm just over here taking mental notes because I definitely identify more as like an outdoor enthusiast. And I'm so blessed to have people in my life who are, you know, really committing themselves to mindful relationships with the earth as like this beautiful practice. And I think we all need to return to that.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll close this question with Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you all for sharing. I mean, Maya, wow, 12 years, girl. That's very impressive and remarkable to me. I also thought, Gabrielle, I was pregnant during the Zika thing as well. So we probably have a child with 2 5-year-olds, I'm imagining, because my daughter is 5 now. And that was a scary time. For me, what I would say is, I think we have to do what we can. And I think when we think about environment, we have to balance internal environment and external environment and where they overlap, and then be really realistic about what you can do. So when I was in my 20s, I traveled to Ecuador and I lived on this permaculture farm, maybe similar to Gabrielle, with had experiences with plant medicine and, you know, fully off the grid, plant them own food, everything. And so I went there to learn about that, and I found out a couple of things about myself. One of them being, I don't actually like planting and farming. It's not my vibe. So they realized that about me pretty early, and so they gave me different tasks to do. I did a lot of like adobe building, like with clay and stuff like that. And I worked a lot with the compost because I'm not a flowers person. And if you give me a plant, it will die. I'm not that person who can nurture the plants. And I learned that because I went to a place to learn how to nurture the plants. And even they said, you know, we're gonna give you a different task, right? As Gabrielle said, there's a role for everyone. And then when I came back to Jamaica now, I was on a mission. I said, all right, permaculture. So I started, you know, I came back to my very regular home, and I started to do, to try not to flush the toilet as much, you know, because I'm thinking, okay, I can cut back on my water. So I had a little bucket now, and I was carrying the bucket out in the garden and pouring the urine, dilute it and pour it into the earth. And, you know, different plants will respond well to the urine because it has a nitrogen, all of these things. I came full force, and my mother was horrified, and worse, the gardener who helps her with the garden. They were disgusted and horrified. Why are you pouring your wee-wee into the good flower beds? So that wasn't on. That was quickly canceled. That was not happening. And so what I realized very quickly is you have to be realistic about what's gonna happen in your environment, in your culture, in your household. What can you do? So now I'm in my 30s and I've settled on the things I can do. I do composting, right? I have my compost set up. I don't make any food waste. Food in my house, you know, all the peels and everything, it goes into the compost. I do that. I'm also very into avoiding pads and tampons. That's something, and diapers, right? So disposable pads, diapers, tampons, those things, I don't use them anymore. I use the menstrual cup, and I use the period underwear, which is so, you know, such great things that you can use. And then for my children, I use the cloth diapers. And I also try and, you know, get them out of the diapers more quickly, so we're not relying on the diapers as much. That's something that I was able to do. Those are things that I've done. And I might have a couple other things, you know, I try to, you know, reduce my use of single-use plastics, things like that. But I had to be realistic with what I could do, because I realized I couldn't do everything that would really save the planet. But I could do these things that not only are good for me because it helps my internal environment as well as the external, but also things I can pass down, you know. So now my children will know, they know about composting. That's just kind of what we do. You know, my daughter will use, as when she has her menstruation, she's not going to be using the disposables. And we try to pass down these things. So my biggest thing is do what you can, do what's realistic and sustainable for you, because we can't play all the roles.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is the power of community again, because everybody cannot be a planter. Everybody isn't going to be in the garden from morning till night. We need people to, as you said, like work with the buildings. We need people for the animals. We need people for the people. So sustainability looks different to everyone, and it is, yeah, the main thing is finding how it looks to you. So so I have a question for Elizabeth and for Gabi. You've both lived in different parts of the diaspora. You've worked with practitioners and clients from around the diaspora as well. Have you noticed any role that culture plays in how we relate to and interact with our environment? And I'm sure there's a lot that you all could say about this, but try to keep the responses brief.
Should I start?
Oh yes, Gabi, you can go first. Yeah.
I mean, it's everything that we do with plant medicine work is cultural, and almost everyone that I work with is a Black person or a person of color, although I'm open to working with, you know, allies as well. But, and what I've seen as what has allowed me to bring, so we each have our original medicine, right, is what we call it in shamanic terms, you know, our gift, you know, our original medicine to bring to the world. And mine is like really interweaving the pertinent cultures of the diverse and pertinent cultures of the people that I do spiritual work with and for, and all of their cultural backgrounds. You know, I always take folks that do work with me, we go back to ancestral stuff. You know, these are ancestral medicines. The way we serve them is based on an ancestral practice. You know, we look to how our, you know, my lineage is what we call it, my shamanic lineage. We look at what that means in terms of how I set up ceremony. And then we also look at the, you know, the participants' lineage as well. And they all come back to nature. When I work with Black women from anywhere in the diaspora, but especially in the Western Hemisphere, no matter what it is that their particular issue that they're coming to work with me on, I take it right back to the Orishas, almost always. And the Orishas are what? But forces of nature that our ancestors were wise enough to give names and to give colors and to give dances and to associate drum beats with these drum beats that gave rise to, you know, dances and music styles that we listen today. It's actually all based in nature. Salsa, jazz, all of that, it comes from the drum beats that were used to call in the deities that represented the rivers, the winds, you know, all of the elements that we're so blessed to be a part of here on earth. And so, you know, all of these practices require that we do not see ourselves as separate from earth, but we are of it, we are part of it, and we do not belong, the earth does not belong to us, land does not belong to us, we belong to it. So that's, I hope that answers the question.
Definitely. That was a great response. Elizabeth?
Well, what I would say, you know, in keeping in mind the African diaspora and Caribbean diaspora, is that we are a people who are we were literally uprooted, right? So when we're talking about the earth and environment and nature, we are a people that were taken away from our own nature, taken away from our own homes and environments, and uprooted from our foundation. So I find in interacting with with people primarily in Jamaica, very few people care about climate, and very few people even, I mean, that's not on the radar. right? Realistically, that's just not on the radar because our internal environment, our internal sense of foundation and stability is still very, very much disrupted. And so, you know, you will find that Jamaica is a place where you walk around and people drop the garbage all over the place. You know, there is no such genuine cultural acknowledgement of or teaching of, you know, recycling or composting. I mean, all of these things is just not a reality for most people here. And so I would focus on two things. Somebody said, yes, survival mode, right? We're still in that survival mode. And so two things that I think are important is really, really to come back to a sense of internal stability, because I think that's where it's going to start for many people who we don't have a genuine connection with foundation within ourselves, right? That was taken away from us, and many of us have never had a chance to reconnect with our origins and our foundation. So I think there is a focus on that, just like genuine health and wellness on a individual scale for individuals, really being acknowledged for what they are experiencing in their day-to-day life, the way that we continue to struggle after what has happened to us as a people. And then also I think it's to reconnect to ancestral roots, but in a realistic way. We don't really know about great so-and-so. So because we don't know about great so-and-so, we often don't even think about that, you know, and those are the ones who will have the practices that return us to the land, you know, is great so-and-so who used to use this and this herb, because this and this might run in the family, so them know which herbs works best for so-and-so. That's gone, right? And so what it is now is to really start to respect and reconnect with your grandma who is still here, right? Or your uncle or your auntie. We have to start to see what the elders who are here, what they might remember, what they might be able to pass down, because there is a connection if we start to piece it together. But it means really looking to those who came before us and who are still here to tell the stories that they have, because we know that the original story, we've been very disconnected from it. So that's my experience in Jamaica. Most people are not thinking about the external environment because their internal environment is so disconnected. And so it's about reconnecting there first and foremost.
Yeah. Absolutely. What Gabi said in the chat is so true. Like if you're in survival mode and you have dozens of short-term threats to focus on, a longer-term threat like climate change, even if you're seeing the impacts on a daily basis, it's like harder to think of that as something to put your time and efforts towards. But yes, I agree that we also need to treasure the information that our elders have and also empower them to talk to us about it, because I know at least here, a lot of elders in our community who have that knowledge are like hesitant to share it because of the experiences that they've had when they were younger, that they were punished for it because it was akin to witchcraft. It was obia. It was like you're doing like left-handed work. So, you know, they have to know that people are interested and see the use in it for our own communities. All right, so we are running out of time a little bit. So we have a quick question for Lauren and for Maya. So you both have a podcasting experience where you engage with healers and therapists and other experts across the community, across the globe. So can you tell us one thing that these conversations have taught you about building community? I can start with Maya.
One thing.
Yeah, I know there's so much that you could share, but I think we only have time.
I think what Elizabeth said would be my number one. My podcast is really focused on a forum and a space to feature elders' voices of the African diaspora. So really listening to our elders, really finding that space and that time to listen to our elders. And we can take that literally and we can say our human elders, we can say you know, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, or just the elders in our community, we can also say, we can take that more metaphorically too and expand that out, and listening to our plant kin, our animal kin, our mineral kin elders, and the wisdom that they have to teach us. So to me right now in my life, you know, I would hope and pray that I'll be a forever student. And I am really just trying so hard to slow down the pace and be in observation mode and listen, because time is of the essence. A lot of things are happening that are spinning out of our control. And we really we don't have a lot of time to get caught up in all of our BS, really. Like, we really just have to be as on point as possible with our purpose and our mission. And I think listening to the wisdom of what's around us and what comes to us, it's all in alignment. And when we bring ourselves, like through our diet and through our spiritual practices, we bring ourselves into alignment, all of the wisdom and all of the messages, it all comes to us. Everything we need comes to us. So I think just staying open and listening, especially to our elders and to nature, is really the most important thing, because this is the guidance, and our ancestors are speaking through these voices. So yeah, I think that's the practice that I try to embody every day, and that's what I try to teach the folks that I'm working with every day.
Beautiful. Yeah, I would say the importance of the archive, the importance of documenting our lives as we're living it, and these conversations that we're having being documented are really going to illuminate to those, not only now, but those who come after, what we were thinking about, what we were talking about, what we were dreaming, right? I have found this to be so useful for me in my own path. My maternal grandmother in particular, when she was living for a large portion of her life, 3 decades to be exact, she had a weekly column in a local Black newspaper. And from that, I'm able to see her, you know, beliefs, her values, what she held dear, what she was angry about, what she was passionate about. And I think that with the podcast, but also like with our journal entries, with any conversation that you might document with other Black women healers, with other Black women who are dreaming up alternate realities of the world that we live in, being able to remember that this isn't just for us in this real-time moment, this is really going to resonate. And that's really, really powerful, more powerful than we can imagine. So yeah, the importance of the archive, the importance of documenting our lives and our relationships as we are living it, and remembering how much that's going to resonate.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think a lot of us think of that, because we're just living in the current moment as it comes, but we are observing history. And as Gabi said, we are ancestors in training. So it's definitely important. We have a question in the chat from Gab Siegfried. Are there key aspects of nature-based religions and Afro-religions that we could carry into daily life outside of just staying in touch with nature? Yeah, Maya, do you have any thoughts?
I just wanted to reiterate what Lauren said earlier about offerings. I think that's once upon a time when I was really trying to go deeper with my nature connection, a teacher told me that I needed to practice ritual. And I didn't grow up with that. I didn't understand, what does that mean? I was disconnected from any cultural ritual outside of the church. So I had to start exploring, what does that mean to me? And it can be something that you actually are like learning from like an actual lineage that you learn from tradition. But what I'm also understanding is it can just be what comes from within us. It doesn't have to be that you have this exact song that came from this exact place that you have permission to sing. It can be the song that comes from your heart, you know, and it can be the water that you bring to the forest when you go for that hike and you offer. You know, it can be like Lauren said, the fruit or whatever it is that you have that's special to you. But I think making offerings in nature is a really powerful way to connect and to start to embody the understanding that everything is alive and that we're all one. And yeah, everything has a spirit and a dynamic essence, and we're interacting together. And the more we open ourselves to that, and the more we practice that, the more it becomes a reality for us. So I just want to reiterate the offerings. It's such an important thing for us to start practicing in our everyday life in nature.
Yeah, Gabi?
Yeah, I love that. Ritual and discipline around ritual, and incorporating your own rituals and things that come from your heart, because everything, even very specific spiritual traditions and lineages, had to come from somewhere. They had to start somewhere. So starting anew with yourself is amazing. And then if you want to connect with specific spiritual traditions, Afro diaspora traditions, doing some research and connecting with others in order to be able to incorporate those spiritual technologies. That's what they are. That's why they were demonized. Obia and all of those things are spiritual technology. It's literally practical magic. And so being able to incorporate that practical magic in your everyday, it is super important. If you think about hoodoo, and there are already so many things that come from the practical magic of our ancestors that we don't even realize. How many of us will not put our purse on the floor? Hoodoo, that's hoodoo. White people don't do that. They put their purse on the ground. We don't do that. None of us do that. And I bet you we're all from different places. There's not too many of us that's going to do that. Salt over your shoulder. Don't sweep over somebody's feet. All these things that were called superstitions or were demonized or whatever, or just foolishness, they're actually strongly linked to the energetics of the spiritual technologies that our lineage has left us. And like just having conversations and, use the internet. But, these things are easy to kind of just look at and see all around, and just know that anything that's from our lineage is not bad. It's literally what we were told that it was bad and given something else that was more palatable because they knew how powerful it was. Why do you think Haiti was the first free Black republic? Because they knew how to work them plants, they knew how to work nature, and they knew practical magic, and they knew how to work with the loa, with the spirit. So that's on that. Oh, hush.
Elizabeth. Yep.
I just wanted to, because Gab asked about, the Afro religions. For me, one of the things that I've really connected with is how much the ancestors are present and are guiding us, and how much if we acknowledge them and help to care for them, as much as they may not be there in the physical, but if we start a dialogue and an exchange with them, they will help us and guide us more than we can ever imagine. I'll give you an example. My daughter has an eye condition currently that's causing her to get eye infections. She's only 16 months and it's been a challenge for us. And, if you take her to the doctor, they're gonna say antibiotics, antibiotics, antibiotics. And that's a scary thing for a little baby. And this child keeps going down in the kitchen and taking big cloves of garlic. And it took me so long to realize she was doing this, because I keep finding her with a clove of garlic trying to bite it. And I said, why are you doing that, Eshe? Take it out of her hand and put it down, not thinking of it. Until it struck me yesterday, maybe somebody is actually telling me to give the child some garlic. Maybe this is actually the medicine she may need. And so I've now started to actually give her the garlic, because she's wanting to bite the raw garlic, and I'm thinking, well, this baby doesn't realize it's garlic, but really maybe it's a grandparent on the other side, or somebody saying, come child, come and have the garlic. This will help you. And if you look around, you'll see that they are here giving us these signs and clues every day, If you look and see what grows in your yard, what grows in your neighborhood, and then you say to yourself, what is my health issue currently? Could this actually be the thing right there outside my window that's gonna help? maybe somebody placed these things there for you. So the idea that there are ones who care for us and who know us intimately, who we can't see in the physical, but if we start a dialogue, and part of that is the offering, you know, so you can make a little plate of food and leave out for them. And even in that conscious act, you're probably gonna give them something healthy. You're probably not gonna give them the Kraft mac and cheese, because, you know, even if maybe they liked that back in the day, we want to think about how we can care for these ones. And thus we start to also care for ourselves, because we establish an exchange, you know? So being more caring in that sense and open to that exchange with the ancestors and general, you know, spirits who are there looking out for us, I think is a powerful one that comes from the Afro religions, you know, that we can hold on to.
Yeah, I'll just briefly chime in and say, asking questions, you know, because Elizabeth, you especially brought it to the ancestors, like asking questions of the eldest people in your family about what it is that they know, have been told. Sometimes the simple act of asking a question will open up so much, and it won't even come in that moment, but it will come later. I've experienced this. There was a moment in 2020 where in my morning rituals, I felt the presence of one of my great uncles who I didn't really know because he passed away when I was young. And I asked my mother that same day, and immediately she lit up and she was like, "That was my favorite uncle. We had the same birthday." She got out all these photos and started showing them to me. And it was really powerful because, you know, who knows if that moment would have ever happened had I not asked the question. And then I was able to discover that he was, you know, another elevated ancestor of mine. So yeah, this connection between the elevated ancestors, and I'm glad that we're ending on this question because it's so powerful and can be so supportive for all of us on our journeys.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a good place to close. I wish we could stay here all afternoon because I have so many other things that I wanted to talk about, but in the interest of respecting everyone's time, we know you're all very busy, you have planes to catch, bags to chase, and we know everybody else joining is probably on their lunch break. So we're going to close here. I'd like to close with a Black and Environment practice. At the end of all of our meetings, we have a one-word checkout. So can you tell us somewhere in nature that brings you joy? Just one word. Can start with mine.
My farm.
Under my magnolia tree.
Pretty much any waterfall anywhere. That rushing water does something for me.
I want to change my answer.
Who changed the answer? Somebody changed theirs?
Yeah, so what's your answer, Elizabeth?
Oh, mine is in the sun, in the sun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine is also running water. The sound of rushing water is one of my favorite things. So again, I would like to thank all of our panelists for this amazing conversation. I'm so happy that I got to do this with you all today. Thank you to all of our guests for coming. Please fill out our survey. You'll be entered to win a copy of Fresh Banana Leaves by Dr. Jessica Hernandez. I'd like to invite everybody to try our meditation session if they haven't tried it yet. The link is available on our link tree on Instagram, and it was also shared on our Twitter page, Black and Environment, on both platforms. And if you have more time today, we have an Instagram live session with a representative from Girl Trek at 1:30 p.m. And we have a Twitter chat at 5 p.m. where we're just going to be recapping the week. We'll have a little manifestation session where, you know, we speak greatness over our lives to end the week. And yeah, that is how we would like to close today. Thank you all again so much. Is there anything that the panelists would like to share before they leave? No. All right, well then I guess we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.